Morning everyone, how you doing today? So this morning on the walk I actually want to record a couple of videos. And the first one here is going to be, kind of a simplistic view of, what I use to compare deals, right? A lot of the questions I get from new investors is, help me understand what a good deal is, what do you use, all of those things. So I thought I would just break it down in a very simple form. And then at the end, we'll sort of, close with the reality that this, again, is just a simple way to do it. But, we got to start somewhere. So I thought if I just put it out there and kind of what are the two numbers that I use to compare deals, I thought it would help folks at least get started. So, before I get into that, do me a favor. If you happen to have some numbers that you look at or any rules of thumb, why don't you go ahead and leave them in the comments. Not only would it help me, but I'm sure as others watch this, it would help them. So let's just get into the simple things that I use. So first and foremost, I only use really two numbers to evaluate a deal. And I talk about a deal, meaning I use it to compare a house, a duplex, a fourplex, an apartment. It doesn't matter. So so the two numbers that I use are expected yearly cash flow, right? What is this property expected to get me every year? And then the other number I use is how much of my cash specifically do I need to put out to secure that property? So let's talk about the second one first, because it's frankly the easiest one to talk about, and it's not really going to create a rat hole of comments or discussions. So how much cash do I put out? Again, so what's important for me is, what does it take for me to put this asset in my portfolio? So typically, that will include things like my down payment. It will absolutely include transaction/closing costs. The other thing that is important to me is I need to know how much cash it will take for me to make that asset productive, right? So I include that in my total cash outlay, right? So if the property is turnkey, right, needs nothing, that's zero. But a lot of the properties I bought in the beginning, required 20, 25 grand to make productive. And I include that cash. And frankly, when I go back, and I've admitted this many times, that's one of the reasons I didn't go very fast in the beginning, is because I kept losing future down payment money to repair costs or make ready costs, whatever you want to call that. So in the end, again, it's how much cash is required for me to add this property to my portfolio in a productive fashion. So again, closing costs, down payment, make ready costs. I add all that up, right? And make ready costs, in the beginning, before you have bids and all of that, a swag number is fine, right? Is it 10 grand, 15 grand? You're just trying to be close, right? So now let's go to the second metric. I go and say, how much is my expected monthly/yearly cash flow? The number I want is yearly, right? If I can calculate monthly, I just multiply it by 12 and there's my yearly number, right? So, if the property produces $200 a month, that's $2,400. If it produces $300 a month, that's $3,600, so on and so forth. And again, you can get into the details of what are the expenses, what are the rents, all of those things. Those are factors that, we need to get into, and it's probably not best to do in a video while I'm walking my dog, because you're going to need Excel, and you'll need things like taxes, insurance, property management in my case. You're going to need a budget for repairs, vacancies, all of those things. Maybe what you can do is you can assume a cost of 50%, whatever 50% of the rent is for that. And then obviously you're going to need your mortgage payment, based on what the interest rates are of the day and your down payment, right? You can get into all of that. So I've done a couple of videos in the past on my Excel spreadsheet that I use. So you go back and look at those if you want the details. But again, for this video, while I'm out walking the dog, it's your expected yearly cash flow, right? So then what I do, once I have those two numbers, is I take expected yearly cash flow and divide by total out-of-pocket cash. So I thought I'd do is I'd just give you a couple examples here. Actually, 3 examples. So let's say we found a house, and for whatever reason, our math says that this property is going to produce $200 a month cash flow, which when you multiply 12 becomes $2,400. And then the expected, out-of-pocket cash, so again being down payment, closing costs, and make ready is $40,000, right? So you take 2,400, you divide by 40,000, and what you get is what I call yield. You get a 6% return, right? So you put $40,000 to work, and those soldiers are earning you 6%, in my opinion. That's property A. Let's look at property B, and let's just call this a 5-unit building. The reason I'm doing this is just, again, I use this same comparison whether it's a house, an apartment, commercial unit, it just doesn't matter. So let's just say this is a 5-unit building. Let's say the expected yearly cash flow is $6,000, which if you're interested, divide by 12 is $500 a month. And again, these are just examples. Let's say for some reason that this property requires $80,000 to add it to your portfolio between down payment, closing costs, make ready. So again, same deal, right? Take 6,000, divide by 80,000, and you get 7.5%, right? So again, just examples, but that 5-unit building, even though it requires twice the cash to close, at least in this example, is a better deal. Now let's go to property C. And property C in this case is a duplex. However, the wrinkle in this one is you don't need bank financing, so you can control the down payment. We're going to call this one owner finance duplex. So for whatever reason, we're going to say that this one only produces $1,500 a month in cash flow. So I think that's $125 if I'm not mistaken. But that's in theory, that's a pretty skinny deal. However, again, because it's owner financed, let's just say it takes $15,000 to add it to your portfolio, right? The seller says, hey, just give me $5,000 down. I'll finance the rest. Right? We don't need. The seller pays the agent. Whatever, right? So in this case, $1,500 a month, and only $15,000 to close. That actually is a 10% return, right? So in this simple math, the duplex with the least amount of cash flow, right? Because the first example was 2,400, the second example was $6,000, and this one's only 1,500. At least in my world, the duplex with owner financing, because I can control the down payment, is the better deal. Now, again, this comparison is only meant to provide me with a lens on which deals to evaluate, right? So I wouldn't just run out and close on this duplex in this example, but of these 3 examples, the duplex would get my most of my attention. I would really start to go in this example, I would try to figure out how I could increase the monthly cash flow, because frankly, $125 a month is pretty skinny, and that's only one repair from going to negative. So I don't know that I would do that deal, even though the return is higher, but you better believe that's got my attention, and I would look at that one hard. So in the end, this is all I do. I try to calculate expected yearly cash flow, then I divide by the expected cash to be productive and add to my portfolio. So let me know what you think. Have a great day.